Day in, day out, you're fighting fires. The urgent keeps crowding out the important, and you've got big goals, but somehow they're the same goals month after month, year after year, because you never find time to work on them. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to actually get those big goals accomplished, even when you're fighting fires every single day and it seems like there's never a break in the constant flow of new work. Welcome to the Do More, Stress Less podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Hasselberger, a time management and productivity coach. In every episode, I give you actionable, practical tips to help you learn to use your time in a way that feels good to you every day. No more hustling, scrambling, or struggling to keep your head above water. So let's dive in, and soon enough, you'll be doing more and stressing less. Do you have big plans, big goals that somehow never seem to come to fruition? They've been languishing on your list or in the back of your brain for months, maybe even years. Look, sometimes you have so much to do on the day to day that pulling your head above water to start thinking about life's bigger ambitions feels just, well, impossible. But it's not impossible to make progress on the big stuff, even when you feel entirely bogged down by all of the little stuff. It just takes a little bit of intentional and ruthlessly realistic planning. Whether it's work goals or personal goals, simply having defined the goal isn't enough. Although it's a good and really necessary start, right? We have to define it first. In fact, what we've got to do is make a realistic plan to make it happen. So let's take a very straightforward, albeit very ambitious goal as an example. Let's say that you want to run a marathon, but you've only ever run a 5K, or maybe you've never even run that. Now, are you just going to keep on going with your normal running schedule and hope for the best? No. You're going to come up with a plan that allows you to build strength and stamina over time. You're going to break that goal down into milestones. You're going to work backwards from the race date to determine the pace at which you need to meet these milestones. Then you're going to break it down even further and determine how far and on which days you're going to run each week until you get to that race date. That's a plan. It's a specific plan. And that's going to greatly increase the likelihood that you'll actually achieve that goal and get those bragging rights, right? Now, you can apply this same methodology to any goal. And trust me, they do not have to be as big as running a marathon. That's something I have certainly never done. Most people tend to do goal planning on an annual or a quarterly basis. But it's not enough to know that you have a big goal looming out there 3 months or even 12 months away. Once you've set your goals, you want to work with them one by one to make a plan because that plan is what's going to get you over the finish line. So here's what you want to do. First thing is you want to determine the deadline, and then you want to break down that time that you have remaining between now and your deadline. You want to see if that's realistic. If it's not, and there's something you can do about it, you might want to change that, right? But let's say that you have the deadline, you've got the time you need between now and then. Now, what intermittent milestones do you need to hit? Right? Put those milestones in there so that if you don't have this done by a certain date, that might be pushing things back. Now you want to break it down even further. What do you need to actually do to reach each of those milestones, right? What are the steps that you have to take to reach the milestones? What are the actual actions that you need to take? How much time do you need to set aside for these things? You want to break it down so that there's no ambiguity, and you want to plan for more time than you think you'll need because you know what? You will probably need it. And now that you have an outline of a plan, you've got to make it real, right? You got to add these tasks along with their next actions to your task system, whatever that is, whether it's an app or a spreadsheet or a journal or whatever it is. Maybe you even want to add them to your calendar. You want to time block some of this stuff because this work now needs to be prioritized in with the rest of your workload, right? And here's a pro tip. If you are having trouble figuring out when you do the work, then again, you might need to adjust the timeline to make it more realistic or to look at everything else that you've got going on and to see what can give, right? Maybe you need to reduce the number of goals you're working on at any one time so that you can have room to actually make them happen. It is, it's hard to be realistic, but you feel so much better when you actually are realistic, right? So if you want to give this a try, and I would love it, pause this for just 1 second and take a moment to think about a current goal that you haven't made as much progress on as you'd like. And then go back and work through those steps that I just shared with you, right? And then, ta-da, you have a goal. You have a realistic, specific plan to achieve it. And now what you've got to do is work the plan and be willing to pivot as things change because they will, right? So we can't be so stuck on our plan and feeling like, oh, if it changes, then we have failed because that's not true, right? Things change and we can change with them. So, as Antoine Saint-Exupéry said, a goal without a plan is just a wish. And I don't want you to just have wishes. I want you to be able to achieve the things that you set out to do. And this is a really concrete way to make that happen. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Do More, Stress Less podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, share this episode with a friend or two who might appreciate a little more ease in their days. I promise you won't regret doing this 30-second good deed. See you next time.